Hi guys, my name is Victoria Wasik and welcome to my Storytime TED Talk. Like many people, over the past 100 years, I was raised on Dr. Seuss books. I loved the colorful pictures and the rhymes that each book provided me with, my favorite being Green Eggs and Ham. However, little did I know at the time, many of the Dr. Seuss books were satirical works that connected to real-world issues. And to think what I saw on Mulberry Street has to do with how you shouldn't eliminate a child's imagination. The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins is about stupid rules that honestly tells you really should change your rules every once in a while. Horton Hatches the Egg is a story about how you can be taken advantage of by strangers, but that doesn't necessarily prevent you from doing the right thing. Yertle the Turtle has to do with power-hungry leaders. Gertrude McFuzz has to do with loving yourself and who you are. The Big Brag has to do with how not everything meets the eye. How the Grinch Stole Christmas has to do with how you should accept people's culture even if you don't necessarily agree with it. And finally, out of all of the books that I read as a child, there was The Lorax, which in my opinion was the most thought-provoking look at real-world issues. Deforestation, industry's incapability of regulating themselves, and ecosystem and environments being completely destroyed because of, well, lack of care. The story starts off with a little boy questioning, what was the Lorax? And why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere? Now, what a lot of people didn't understand about this story is that the Lorax was created to represent activists, those who were trying to preserve the environment, those who were trying to save the environment from industries. And, well, it all began when the Onceler came to the Truffula Tree Forest and set up shop. In no time at all, I built a small shop and then chopped down a truffula tree with one chop. With great skillful skill and great speedy speed, I took the soft tuft and knitted a sneed. Now, many of you already know the sneed was something that could be created to use for anything. It also created the Lorax. Here's the creation of the Lorax. Here's where I believe the Lorax really made a correlation or a connection to many activists. "Mister," he said with a sawdusty sneeze, "I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees, for the trees have no tongues. And I'm asking you, sir, from the top of my lungs." He was very upset as he shouted and puffed, "That thing you made, what is that thing you made out of my truffula truff?" Now, many of you already know from seeing these images of a sneed, it's kind of a bit of an odd thing. However, here's where the book takes a little bit of a twist with the sneed. The Lorax thought that the sneed would never take off. The sneed was ridiculous. The sneed would never sail. But moments after saying this, the minute I proved him wrong, for just that minute, a chap came along. I thought that the sneed I had knitted was great. He happily bought it for $3.98. I laughed at the Lorax, "You poor stupid guy. You never can tell what some people will buy." This is a very interesting point that the book makes because you really honestly never know what industries will make and what will become successful and what honestly will flop. The Sneed, unfortunately, was a success for the poor Lorax. The Lorax cried one last time. "I repeat," cried the Lorax, "I speak for the trees." "I'm busy," I told him. "Shut up, if you please." This is the first real instance of the Onceler ignoring the Lorax, or in this case, industries ignoring activists' desperate approach, desperate cries of, "Hey, you need to stop this." Let's see what happens next. Because of this destruction of the ecosystem, because of the destruction of the environment, the chopping of the trees, everything began to fall through the cracks. The barbaloots, the little bears that would feast on the truffula berries, began to become hungry because there weren't as many berries to be eaten. There weren't any berries to be available. The Lorax knocks at the door of the Onceler, saying, "What have you done? What have you done? Now my bears cannot eat. I need to send them away." Now, this story sees the Lorax as the hero and the Onceler as almost like the villain. However, the villain, the Onceler, had a bit of remorse. I, the Onceler, felt sad as I watched them go. But business is business, and a business must grow, regardless of crumblies and tumblies, you know. This was the beginning of true industry destruction of an environment, of an ecosystem. This is whenever the Onceler's industry became booming. Everyone wanted the Sneeds. And as a result, even more things began to go out of hand. You see, he really did mean no harm at the beginning, but he was so focused on making money that he overlooked what he was doing. And as you can see, from the smog in the skies, the songbirds could no longer sing because the smog's in the lungs. Not only that, because of the disposal process, the fish in the rivers began to no longer be able to hum, the humming fish, because their ponds were full of smut. After this, the Lorax came to the Onceler one final time, and, well, let's say the Onceler really wasn't too happy about this. And then I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Lorax, "Now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap, yap, and say bad, 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 bad. Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend on doing just what I do." This is exactly what a lot of industries' approach has taken. They're so focused on making a profit that no matter what, they say, "This is my right, this is what I'm able to do." You can see this in a lot of industries today, such as the strip mining in Kentucky, or the deforestation of the redwood forest in California. Industries are so focused on trying to get a profit that they overlook what they are doing overall to an environment or an economy is just their main focus. The interesting thing about the Lorax is that it was one of Dr. Seuss's favorite books. It was created almost 50 years ago today, and the impact of it can still be very severe. Despite the fact that this book was created over 50 years ago, there are still industries putting smog in our rivers. Strip mining to be example, deforestation, topping off the soil, all of the runoff goes straight into the rivers. It not only impacts the ground, but it also impacts our waters. The waste going in to the rivers then gets traveled to other parts of a forest and then contaminating those other parts. And then it just becomes a spiral down a hill. The Lorax was an intention to warn industries what could happen when the last truffula tree falls. The airs will be grimy, the lakes will be full of smog, and overall, we might just have one truffula seed to save us all. Thank you guys.